For many, the Cold War began in Fulton, Missouri, on March 5th, 1946.
He's one of the great men of the age. He's a great Englishman, but he's half American.
When Winston Churchill made his famous Iron Curtain speech.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Except in the British...
This speech showed the public, for the first time, the difficulty encountered in attempting to reach post-war agreements between the communist East and the capitalist West.
Immediately after that, Stalin came out with answers to a foreign correspondent's questions, in which he compared Churchill to Hitler.
This speech was a public insult to the Soviet Union, who considered themselves an ally of the United States. The difficulties in reaching an agreement had been mutual and caused by both the West and the East, though this speech blamed only the USSR. Stalin saw the speech as confirmation of a threat to the Soviet Union.
As a belligerent call to arms.
The speech was not well received in the United States. It was thought to be too tough a speech. And the President was criticized by some for having Churchill over. This goes to show how history changes. Now it's one of the great speeches that's ever been made because it helped warn the world about the danger of the Soviet aggression.
If relations had been difficult before the Iron Curtain speech, afterwards they suffered as they never had before.
To provide authority for assistance to Greece and Turkey in the amount of $400 million for the period ending June 30th, 1948.
Truman was mainly implying the countries on the Soviet Union's western border, which it required for a buffer zone for the security of the country. For the USSR, Truman's speech plainly showed one of their greatest fears, capitalism. Now, not only did the USA hope to create the threat of capitalistic states right on the Soviet Union's border, but these states would also recreate the threat of invasion, that threat which had been proved 3 times that century to be more than just a threat. The Soviet Union had been invaded twice through its western border by Germany in the First World War and in the Second World War, and once by the Allies during the Civil War. Therefore, the Truman Plan directly threatened the security of the Soviet Union.
After the war had ended in 1945, Western Europe was in a state of poverty, a state ripe for the takeover of a communist government. Life was extremely hard. Besides the political tensions, there was always a sense of having to tighten your belt. We were hungry. We were always hungry. The Marshall Plan was designed as economic assistance to Western Europe. The USA aimed to give large dollar grants, allowing the nations to buy food, raw materials, and industrial machinery from the United States of America.
The free peoples of the world look to us for support in maintaining their freedoms.
The motives of the United States were to create a captive market for U.S. goods and to help U.S. farmers, businessmen, and all those affected by the falling domestic demand. They aimed to contain communism. Relating to the Truman Doctrine, the USA had a pessimistic view of the Soviet Union. Marshall and U.S. officials believed that communism thrives in poverty, shown by the rise of the left all over Europe, especially that in Italy. The USA offered grants to all of Europe, but secretly hoped the USSR would decline.
Intelligence service knew everything. We've read all the documents which were produced by United States, by the government of the United States, which was sent to almost all European countries, including the government of the Soviet Union, but and other documents which were not sent to the Soviet Union.
This information confirmed that America didn't really want us to participate in it. They just made this demonstrative gesture in order not to scare away those already dealing with them. Stalin abruptly told Molotov to pull out of the negotiations.
It was seen by Stalin as an attempt to create an American economic empire in Eastern Europe, an effort to block Soviet Union from raw materials. The Soviets also saw it as an attempt to disintegrate the Soviet sphere of influence, which was a key part of their foreign policy. Soviet action, therefore, became more aggressive as they feared the actions of the USA. The US, however, saw this as a breach of protocol. The United States and her allies exploited the predominant coal production of Western Germany, using it as a bargaining tool against existing agreements. The Soviet Union took a dislike to this technique, especially since the USA had accused the USSR of breaking treaties and agreements, and now appeared hypocritical.
The Russians were advancing westward with the takeover in Czechoslovakia and so on. So it helped very importantly to pass the legislation. We were doing well by doing good.
The United States and her allies exploited the predominant coal production of Western Germany, using it as a bargaining tool against existing agreements. The Soviet Union took a dislike to this technique, especially since the USA had accused the USSR of breaking treaties and agreements, and now appeared hypocritical. Tensions grew due to this action, as the USSR retaliated by reducing the grain transport to Western Germany.